Hey guys, GMX here for another episode in our Road to Civ 6 Deity, a series of videos that helps players of all levels understand the game a bit better so they can help increase their difficulty settings in their single player games. In today's video, we'll be covering how to settle your first cities in Civ 6. This will be an up-to-date guide for the December 2020 Frontier Pass. In this video, we will cover the key elements to a good city as well as review 3 examples on different maps. If you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button and consider subscribing. This will help other Civ 6 fans see this video so they too can be helped with settling their first cities. Before we start, there are a couple things we will not be covering in the video. That we will not be taking in consideration unique leaders, districts, or abilities. We will not be considering specific win conditions. And finally, we will be looking at this for specifically single player games versus AI. We're doing this as it will simplify the process and allow newer players a chance at understanding the basics of settling their first cities. This will also apply to founding other cities as well, but as games progress, things like win conditions play a bigger part in the decision making of where your city should be settled. If you would like a specific video on a leader, win condition, or other topic, be sure to leave it in the comments down below. Now let's get into the video. When looking at your cities, the first thing you want to consider is the tile yields. Ideally, you want to have a single city with at least a 4 yield tile in your city borders when you found your city. A reason you want a tile such as this is because it'll help create your units quicker, as well as help maintain your ability to grow in population. A quick way to toggle your yields so that you can see them as you're playing your game is to click the Y button. Quicker units speak for itself, as you will be able to get warriors and slingers if there's an early game push by the AI. And the growth in population is key because without it, you will be delaying your settlers as well as placing districts, as your population climb will be much slower. Typically, a 2 food, 2 production tile is the most common 4 yield tile and are usually found on hills with either a resource, woods, or rainforest. These tiles are very helpful in the early game, as a 2 food tile will ensure that you maintain a steady population growth, since each population you have in your city will require 2 food to ensure that the population can be fed. The 2 production tile helps dramatically when comparing to a 1 production tile, as you can typically get a scout out in 6 turns with a 2 production tile, whereas with 1 it'll take 8. Next, you will want to consider settling on either freshwater, coastal tiles, or a tile with no water. These tiles can be viewed using the settler lens of your UI or by selecting the number 4 on your keypad. Freshwater will be in a bright green, coastal will be in yellow, and water will be a gray color. Cities founded on a gray tile will be limited to growing to a max population of 2. Coastal tiles will be limited to growing to a maximum population of 3. While freshwater cities have a maximum growing limit to 5 population. Ideally here you would want to settle on freshwater at all times, but sometimes you will be out of luck. But do not fret, there's some things such as aqueducts, granaries, and other improvements that can help increase your housing limits. In terms of freshwater, there are 3 sources: rivers, lakes, and oases. Ideally, rivers are the best to settle on, as this will allow you to construct water mills, which are constricted to only being built in cities adjacent to a river. Another thing to consider is settling on a river delta on a sea or ocean. This is a unique location as it will give you the benefits of both coastal and freshwater tile, as well as being on a river, which will be able to permit you to build a water mill as well. The next item we want to consider is growth. While we were looking at the immediate tiles surrounding the city earlier, we now want to take a glance at where your city is going to be expanding to. A city in Civ 6 will grow to a working tile distance of 3 tiles away from your city center. So in settling our cities, we'll want to look at both the yields as well as district placements for the future. Yields will be very similar to what we previously discussed, wherein 4 yield tiles or better are exceptional, and anything less you might want to consider moving elsewhere. Take note that things like deserts, mountains, and tundra typically are 0 yield tiles, in which you should avoid having as a large chunk of your city, but may be helpful in other things like adjacencies or improvements. Districts are a lot more complicated as there's many adjacency bonuses as well as strategic advantages of the placements. I'm not going to be covering every district, but in my 3 random games, I will briefly discuss how I will build my district in the cities and some basics for adjacencies. Be sure to subscribe, as I will be making a video about each of these districts in the future. Resources are the last thing in which we will look at for our cities. Resources play a key role in Civ as they are necessary for a lot of things. Resources are dotted around the map and are tiles in which typically grant higher yields. These resources are broken up into 3 categories: bonus, strategic, and luxury resources. And one should note that all resources must be improved to get the maximum benefit out of them. Bonus resources such as rice, wheat, sheep, and fish can help with district adjacencies, tech and civic boosts, and harvesting. These resources are limited and will be present for everyone at the start of the game. Strategic resources such as horses, iron, coal, and oil can also help with district adjacencies and tech and civic boosts, but cannot be harvested. These resources are used for trade and unit production, and will also not appear until the player has unlocked a technology which will reveal the resource. A good example of this is the iron resource, which is unlocked in the bronze working technology. Lastly, luxury resources are tiles such as whales, silver, truffles, silk, and amber. Like strategics, luxuries help with district adjacencies and tech and civic boosts, but cannot be harvested, but usually can be traded for a handsome chunk of money. The additional bonus of luxuries is that they provide one amenity for up to 4 cities for each unique luxury resource. A pro tip for resources is to utilize a Civilpedia guide located in-game. This will tell you some more info about the resource as well as what kind of improvement is needed to improve the tile. Ideally, in a good city, you want roughly 2 to 3 random resources to be able to utilize in your game. Now that covers the basics for what we need to be looking for when you set up your first city. Let's go ahead and jump into the 3 random matches on the continents map, and all other settings is standard, and choose our ideal settling locations. To look at our 3 random maps, we're going to actually use the Play Now feature, which puts us on a small continents map with random leaders. We're going to click this 3 times and choose our cities from there. Alright, getting into our first civ and first city here, we actually have the Korean Empire. We have a pretty actually ideal starting location. Looking here, we actually have some mountains to our left, and we got the ocean to our right. We have tons of hills around us, and if you can see, we have a couple of a bonus resource here of deer. We got some marble here. We got some stone up here. So we do have Korea, but we're not going to be taking into consideration her unique district in this one. We're just going to be placing it as a rank, like if we would be playing a normal district, and then go from there. So there's 2 things we want to consider. We want to be within tiles of these strategic resources, so we want to be within 3 tiles there. We also have the river here, so we're going to want to settle on the fresh water somewhere along here. Another thing to note is that there's very nice 2-2 tiles around here as well. Now there's something to be said potentially about settling on the coast, but we could also settle somewhere to the left over here and still get a bunch of 2-2 tiles, as well as getting closer to these mountains and things like that for campus adjacency bonuses here. So if we go ahead and look at our freshwater lens, we can see that the tile we're currently on is a no water tile, so that would not be great because we would not get any extra housing. If we look right down to our bottom left, there is a freshwater tile +3. We got some coastal tiles up here, but I think what we're actually probably going to do, I think the best tile to settle on is probably going to be this 2 food, 1 production tile right here. The reason being is that I have a 2 food, 3 production tile, which is even better than a 4 yield. It's actually a 5 yield tile here, as well as being surrounded by 4 yield tiles, which is amazing. Additionally, right where this stone is, there is an amazing campus. If I was not playing Korea, Korea has a unique thing where they have to be built on hills and don't get adjacency bonuses from mountains, but this would be a +1, 2, 3, 4 campus here. And it's also got a potential for campus over here. And I still have the ability to stretch and get a harbor if I really want. And then there's going to be good things for commercial hubs, as well as since there's a bunch of rainforests and woods, I can chop those out using magnets or something like that. So in this scenario, I would say where this advisor is saying and put my city right there. So we went ahead and founded our city, and we hit a jackpot, actually. It looks like there's a natural wonder right next to us that gives us extra faith and science per turn, as well as very, very good tiles over here. Tons of 4 yield tiles. This is actually a very, very good start. If you get this start here, you are golden. Let's go ahead and rate this out of 10. I have a bunch of strategics here, and I have a luxury resource here. I have a bonus resource here and bonus resource here. So in resources, I would give this a, let's see, there's nothing else around that's within a 2 tile radius. So let's go ahead and give this probably a, I'd say 6 out of 10 for resources. In terms of yields, this is a 9 out of 10. Like, this is amazing yields. I don't think there could be too much better, except for maybe if this had some woods on it instead. But this is an amazing start for yields. In terms of districts, you have some great adjacencies for holy sites as well as campuses because of these mountains. You can get a +1, 2, 3, 4 campus or holy site here. And you also have the opportunity here to get a pretty good industrial zone right here. If you were to do a holy site here and a campus here, let's actually put out the pins for it and I'll be right back. If you were to do a +4 holy site here and a +4 campus here, you would also get a adjacency bonus for industrial zone here. And industrial zones get bonuses from being adjacent to quarries, which if you improve the marble, you actually get a quarry as well. So you can actually get a nice +2 industrial zone there. And if you don't do, and you have the potential to get even more adjacency bonuses from getting extra districts around here. So for this city, I would rate this a total 9 out of 10. There's not too much that would be better for this city. Maybe something like some floodplains or something like that, so I can get dams and stuff up. But I have the potential to get aqueducts and things like that. So I'm not harping about this start. This is going to be a legendary start, and this is all just on the standard. So I got really lucky here. This would be an actually good game to play out. Let's go ahead and jump into the next map. On our next map, we have the Khmer. We don't have that great of a starting location at first glance. We got some tundra tiles up here, which only have 1 yield on them. Pretty poor there. We do have some 3 yield tiles here, but then we have some coastal tiles. The max we have is a 4 yield here, but that's a coastal tile, and it would take 2 growth to get to it. So not a great start currently. We do have surrounding us immediately 3 yield tiles, which is pretty okay. Looking at some resources, we have silver and fish, so we have technically 4 resources around us, which is pretty good. So that would actually be pretty decent to settle right in place. But I think I'm actually going to go down the river here, mainly because I want to be away from this tundra tile. This tundra tiles, you can't do too many improvements on them. You can't do things like farms and things like that. And it just has 1 food. So 1 food is an issue because you won't have population growth. You'll have stagnant growth there. Your cities won't be able to grow if they only have 1 food per tile that they're working. Moving to the right here, it proves we're pretty much in between a rock and a hard place. We don't have very good yields. As you can see, there's no tile around us that has a +4 yields or greater. The only ones we have are this silver and this reef tile, but those only give you gold. They're not going to give you either food or production. So sadly, I think this start is going to be rated very, very poorly. But let's go ahead and look at it for adjacency bonuses for districts and things like that. In terms of adjacency bonuses, we are not looking too hot as well. We could get +2 commercial hubs just because we're on a river here, but things like campuses and holy sites, we're not going to get any adjacency bonuses unless we got a pantheon that's going to help us out. Now, there is something to be said about a pantheon that gives you tundra tile adjacency bonuses for holy sites. That could be a very helpful thing here. But other than that, these are not even floodplain tiles along this river, so you can't get a dam up, you can't get a nice adjacency bonus industrial zone or anything like that. So all in all, this is a very, very poor start city. If I had to choose a starting location, I would honestly move back to where I had started. The reason for this is it still has a lot of tundra in here, but there's 2 woods tiles that we can eventually get lumber mills on. We have the silver in range. We have 2 fishes in range. We have this reef that we could get. We have these 3 yield tiles around us that we could build mines and lumber mills on or chop out these woods. But the reason why I'm not settling more to the east is because if you see here, there is tons of desert. Desert is not great for yields unless I get a pantheon that helps me with adjacency bonuses for things like holy sites for being next to desert tiles. Otherwise, it's not going to be very useful for me, especially in the early game. Moving back to this tile, we can see we get all those resources still. We still have 2 copies of silver in here, 2 copies of fish, and then we can also pick up this marble as well as this wheat. So this is going to be the best spot for us to get as many resources as possible, and that's going to be the best way the city grows and expands and has improvements is through those things there. So now let's look at districts and where I would place them. I'm going to go ahead and put down some pins and I'll be right back. All right, welcome back. Looking at districts here, I think what I would do here is I would get a holy site up here in the tundra and try to go for that pantheon where I can get tundra adjacency for my holy sites. Additionally, I would probably get an aqueduct here so I can get extra housing in this initial city. I'm going to be settling on freshwater, so that's not going to be a big deal. I'm going to have plenty of housing there. And then what I'd probably do is get a commercial hub and industrial zone combo. With this industrial zone, I would actually get an adjacency bonus from being next to the marble because that is a quarry. I would get +2 from being next to the aqueduct. And then I'd get another adjacency bonus because I would have 2 districts adjacent to this industrial zone, making it a nice +4 industrial zone. Additionally, I would have a +3 commercial hub here because there is 2 districts adjacent to it, and it also gets +2 because it is along a river. That's what I would do for setting up the city. So overall, I would rate this start very, very poor. It's not the worst, but I would go ahead and maybe rate it I would say a good 5 or 4 out of 10. So this is a very, very poor start. You could still get it working, but it's not going to be the great legendary start that we got last time. It's probably middle of the road somewhere, probably lower part of the road, actually. It's like taking a gravel road rather than a nice paved, asphalted highway to your destination. So it's not a complete dirt or you're running through the wilderness kind of road, but it's not the greatest. So with that said, let's go on to the last map. All right, and we got our last map here as Lataro. Looking at it very, very, very briefly, I think this is actually a pretty good start. We have some good things going for us. If you look around us, we actually have some, these are floodplains here, so getting things like dams is going to be possible. as well as some pretty good things for aqueducts as well. Looking at having fresh water and everything like that, we have tons of rivers around us, so we'll have plenty of that. Next, looking at yields, we have pretty low yield tiles, which is unfortunate, but I think we could actually be pretty okay without those. Looking at the city, we have some pretty low yield tiles around us. We actually have some tundra to our south, which isn't that great, but it does have a lot of wood, so you can build things like lumber mills or chop out things using magnets. But when looking this start location over, I think our best spot is actually going to be the northeast here. In terms of resources, we have tons of great resources around us. We got some wheat, we got some maize, we got stone, as well as sheep, so we can get tons of things very quickly off the bat. We do have truffles way over here, but that's probably not going to be within reach of our city unless we settle in place. Now I'm going to take a look at districts, so I'll be right back. So moving up to the northeast, we actually see that we actually do have truffles to our north as well. So while we won't be able to get this one, we will be able to get this one up here. So our resources are even better moving up to the northeast tile here. Now when looking at districts for the city, we'd have a nice +3 campus we could get right here in this mountain crest. And we also have a very nice industrial zone, a nice actually +6 here, which would be fantastic. We'd have an aqueduct and a dam next to it, as well as a commercial hub and a quarry. So you get +1 from the quarry, +1 from the commercial hub and city center adjacency, so that's a nice +1, and then both the aqueduct and the dam give it +2 as well. So you'd have a nice +6 industrial zone right there, give you tons of production per turn. Additionally, starting on this tile here gives us access to a nice +2/+2 tile to food to production. That way we can get our scouts and warriors and slingers up very quickly. Overall, I would rate this city probably a good 6 out of 10. It's not the greatest, but it does have a good starting tile. Expanding tiles are not that great, but we do have some good resources such as the stone, the sheep, the wheat, and the luxury resource up here, so it's okay. We have pretty good a district adjacency, but the bad part is that these districts are later in the game, so it's not the best, but still very, very doable. So what did you guys think about my city placements? Was there anything you would have done differently? Go ahead and put it down in the comments below. Let's review the things you want to look for when settling your first city. First, we want to look at tile yields. Second, we want to look at freshwater availability. Third, we want to consider growth, that being yields as well as district placement. And finally is resources. Once you master these 4 items, you'll be able to settle cities like a pro. Hopefully this guide was helpful to you. And if it was, be sure to like and subscribe for more. If there's a video you'd like me to make, go ahead and comment it down below. And with that said, that's going to be it for me, guys. You guys have a good one. Bye.